my channel, Pen to Paper. I'm Leah Lindeman, author of the Canadian Reminiscence series. If this is your first time stopping by, thank you for stopping by and welcome to my channel. And if you are coming back, thank you for all your support. And before I dive into my reviews for this past month and what I'm going to be reading for August, I just want to give a shout out and kind of give back the love for all the support that I've been given since I started this channel at the beginning of the year, and just how supportive and loving this book community has been to me. So I want to specifically thank Jay. Jay just put out this short video of all these supportive booktubers that he knows, and he put me in there, and it just meant so much. I almost cried. I don't cry very easily, so if I didn't cry, it's not it's not a compliment. It was so sweet, and that's what I love about this community is we're all here for each other, working together, supporting each other, and it's really amazing. And then even in July, Miss Reads a Lot, Sandy, she tagged me. Like, it was the first person who tagged me for a book tag. I love book tags, so I was so excited about that. So thank you again. It just meant so much to me. Along with that, you hear me saying in the front of every video, at the beginning of every video, this is the channel Pen to Paper, but the official channel name has never been Pen to Paper. It's just Leah T. Lind. And originally I had it that way because that's my Instagram handle, and so I thought, oh, they just kind of go with each other. But I am naming this channel Pen to Paper, so I've officially changed the channel name. Like where it says the channel name, it's no longer Leah T. Lind. It's the same channel, but I just officially named it Pen to Paper. So hopefully that is not confusing to people. I think I've made it very clear at the beginning of every video. Anyways, I just thought it was time for an official change. Let's dive in to this month's reads. This month I did the Indie Readathon on the heels of last month's Olympic Readathon, and I think I'm readathoned out. It was so much fun. I got 7 books in. I thought I would be able to squeeze in an 8th book, but I just wasn't able to. But that's okay. 7 books is still quite a stretch for me, so this was great. And what was very helpful were that most of the books I picked were on the shorter side. So I think just me kind of losing steam a little bit, picking shorter titles worked out really well. So I'm here to share them with you, and I mostly read Kindle this month as well, which I'm not really a Kindle fan, but I tried the Kindle Unlimited for the whole month just to try it, see what it's like, and it was okay. It was just a different kind of experience. I will always love paperbacks. I think I grew to appreciate Kindle, but still, paperbacks are my first love, and that's what I always will try to go to. But hey, if someone has like a free Kindle book, I'll pick it up. It's free, right? And I'm still supporting the author. So let me find, okay, the first read I did for this month was, oh, hold on. I want to give you, like this. Okay, the actual picture. I don't want the glare there. So The Patience of a Dead Man by Michael Clark. I don't want to mix up his name with another horror author. So this is, I'm very new to the horror genre, as some of you may know, and this is a ghost story. Well, kind of a ghost story. I absolutely loved it. It was a 5-star read for me. Well, if I read horror, I tend to go toward ghost stories. I don't know what it is about that supernatural element that just kind of grabs my attention, but there you have it. And so the story is of a man who has just been divorced, and he's fighting for custody of his kids, and he's kind of down on the outs, and he purchases this property that has had a death in it, but he only finds out after he's purchased the property. And I think from what we gather is that you actually don't have to disclose that there was a death unless the buyer is asking. So he is sold the property by Holly, who's the real estate agent. And once he gets there, he starts to hear happenings in his house. And not just by one ghost, but there's two ghosts. Now it seems like there's three ghosts, but turns out the woman is not a ghost. She's a revenant. She's kind of like a living dead type of zombie, but she's not a zombie. I'm probably saying this all wrong, but I think the official term is a revenant. And so what plays out in his house is he's trying to figure out what are going to make these ghosts at rest. And then he finds out that there have been two deaths and even more in this house. And so Holly, the real estate agent, who she feels absolutely terrible, she didn't even know about these deaths. And so they actually become romantically involved, and they start to find the mystery of what happened, why are these ghosts haunting the property, and the revenant, why is she not a ghost, and how is she able to trip or to actually grab things and not move through walls. It's a very strange scenario. Michael Clark was an absolute genius with this piece. It was scary. The characters were believable. The setting in itself was an amazing character. The way that he layers Tim's present with the previous death, the previous owner who died, and she left diaries for the future owners to find and to perhaps solve the mystery of why these ghosts are, haunting the place. And so it's interesting. The title, The Patience of a Dead Man, you're like, what? So it really makes sense once you read the book. But it was absolutely thrilling. Loved it. I cannot wait to read the second and the third book, and I'm sure I will not be disappointed. I have only heard good things of this trilogy, and so that was an amazing read. The next read that I did was The Legend of the Amberstone, a Persian fairy tale by Leila Hidari Faruhi. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. And Jonathan Butcher. Now, Jonathan's my friend. I think I mentioned this in the previous video. And I've been wanting to read this book for a while, actually since last year, since I knew that he even put out a book. I'm giving this book 3.5 stars. I have never read a fairy tale before. Like, not even Hans Christian Andersen. And that's a classic, and I love classics. I've read many of them, but I haven't even read, like, 1001 Nights, Arabian Nights. Never read that. So this was my first entry into the fairy tale world. So I don't even know what classic fairy tales are supposed to be like, but this was an enjoyable read. I liked it a lot. It's about this being who is over all the kings and queens and over all their little kingdoms, and he kind of shifts things as he sees fit. And he has two daughters. One is Afsoon and one is Nikun. And one of them is selfish, entitled, and only seeks the power to please herself, whereas Nikun is definitely of a much more meek and humble spirit and is really, she really wants to help be a good ruler and help the rulers underneath her be good rulers to their people. And so what happens is there's a battle of wits and deceit and treachery between the two sisters, and what will they do to keep the kingdom safe? And what will Nikun, the humble one, do to keep the kingdom safe from her sister, Afsoon, right? Yeah, Afsoon, who is trying to take the power for herself. And I really enjoyed, it had a lot of like the kind of old mythical quests, Greek mythology feeling. There was some of that in there. This is a real Persian fairy tale, so I was really excited to try kind of a little bit of a different, okay, I have read Greek mythology. I don't know if you would consider that a fairy tale, but it had some of those elements, and it was just an enjoyable story overall. There were some parts where the authors, let's say he was talking about Afsoon, so Afsoon is the one that is the more power-hungry of the two sisters and doesn't really care about other people. And what I found a little bit distracting was they would say if Afsoon were like a girl in our time period, a modern time period, she would be the girl who always seeks the attention for herself, would go out late to parties and not care what her parents think. And it just kind of pulled me out of the fairy tale. I didn't find it was very necessary to describe her in that way. There were better ways to describe that type of character in, let's say, her dialogue or in her actions. We didn't need that kind of like jarring, okay, let's take her out of the fairy tale and show you what she would be like in our modern times. And then they did the same thing for Nikun. So that was very, I just didn't like it. If they had just kept to the fairy tale and just weaved that in more to the story, that would have been better. I think there would have been, it could have been stronger with a little bit more showing than telling. But then again, I don't know if fairy tales do more telling, but I think you could always do a little bit more showing. I found some spots that could have been stronger because of it. But then again, I'm not a fairy tale expert in books. Overall, I enjoyed, like, there's a cute little love story. There's a little bit of everything: adventure, betrayal, deceit. A good solid 3.5 stars, and I am looking forward. They are putting out another book sometime. Again, I think it's a Persian fairy tale, so I'm looking forward to reading that and just kind of seeing what they bring with that book. Alright, my third read for the month was another 5-star read, and that is Saltblood by T.C. Parker. This I found on Jay Maddox's channel and Brad Proctor, and they both gave it high praise. So, and this fit, sorry, I forgot to tell you all. My categories, The Patience of a Dead Man was the group read for the horror, crime, thriller group that I was a part of, and The Legend of the Amber Stone fulfilled the quest category. This fulfilled the category for a dystopian read. And it was a dystopian read in the sense that it is set slightly more in the future. Basically, how if you do something or say something that is caught on tape that goes viral and that incites anger among people, you are sent to this island where there's no phone reception. There's absolutely no contact with the outside world. You are stuck there with your fellow prisoners. It's a prison, but it's an island. So you have a place to sleep, you can walk around, there's a beach, but there's also these mysterious inhabitants that you share the island with. And so Robin is sent to this place. I think she has a 6-month, 9-month sentence. And she meets this guy, Jack, on the way there. And Jack soon starts unraveling, not only because he is getting off his dependency for alcohol, but he starts hearing these weird, strange hoofbeats at night that start to haunt him. And Robin and Jack one day go exploring, and they come across this chapel where there are these monstrous statues of this demon of the sea that is like a centaur, but the top part of the man is skinless, and it's all muscle and tendon and just very evil-like. So there's these statues of this demon that is in this chapel that's being worshipped. And from there, it just starts unraveling how they find out that this island may be more permanent than they thought, because they go there for a few months and then they're supposed to leave. But do they leave? That's the question. So this was such a strong story in the sense that it pulled from dystopian elements, mythological elements, and then horror. And the pacing was really well done. I was always flipping the page, wanting to know, okay, what's going to happen next? The characters were enjoyable, and you could feel the tension that they're feeling and the anxiety that's building as they are finding out and discovering what this island is really for, and who is this beast from the sea, and the inhabitants, and what is their role play. Great read. I loved it. I'm gonna definitely look up some of her other books and see what they're like. The next read Okay, this is really bad with glare. Okay, the next read we did, this was part of the overall group read, so all the teams could read this book. And this is A Court of Honey and Ash by Kelly St. Clair and Shannon Mayer. So obviously when I heard the title, I was like, oh my goodness, it's like a Sarah J. Maas book, and I love Sarah J. Maas's Akatai's series, except for the latest one, which if you go to one of my previous videos, my April reads, I dish out on why I didn't care for it. But overall, I like her works very much. And so I think that was actually a setup for the falling of the star rating. It was too close to her title, so therefore I was expecting, I guess, the same caliber of writing and maybe the same style, and to me it just fell flat, and that just could be because my expectations were not met, and maybe not so much, you know, obviously it has to be unique and genuine from these authors, and I appreciate that. But let's go on to the story. So we have Calic of No Name House, and what's interesting in this book is that there's the Fae world living in harmony with the human world, which I thought was an interesting concept. But we're thrown into the beginning of Calic. She is trying to finish this race that will help place where she stands in the court. So there's the Seelie court and the Unseelie court. And basically like what her placement will be, if she'll get a higher placement or a lower placement. Turns out she finishes the race well and she gets the highest placement that she can pick. But when she decides, or when she has to declare her oath to the king, Underhill, their source of power and magic, collapses and breaks, and she doesn't know what happens. The oracle has said that it is her fault, and now she's on the run for her life. So she goes, I believe it's set around Alaska, Yukon area. She goes there to the Bermuda Triangle, which is the Fae's Bermuda Triangle. And there are a bunch of Fae strays who have not had placement in the Seelie courts or Unseelie courts. And they live together and they formed a community. And who follows her but her best friend and the love of her life. What's his name now? I think his name is Lan. So she is determined to find out what happened, why is she the cause of the magic breaking, and so on and so forth. So this, I was very conflicted about this. I'd say from the beginning to the middle or 2/3, I wasn't that crazy about it. Because the beginning, just the pacing and the plotting, it was very confusing. I was kind of like thrown into the middle of everything. I didn't feel, the beginning I found needed a lot of work in terms of setting up the world and really setting up the world better. I mean, I even found that Shadow and Bone did it better, and that only got like a 3 stars. Because what's her name now? Because Leigh Bardugo, actually her strength is setting up the world. But I felt it needed a lot more setup in terms of political alliances, the kingdom, how it works. I found it was very basic language in the terms of setting up the setting and the characters and the plot issue. So in that sense, I didn't like it. As I said, the pacing was off. But when it got to the last third of the last half of the book, then it really started picking up and really started getting interesting. The writing was better. I think it just needed to be neater and tighter in the beginning. The ending I did enjoy, and I will, I think, eventually get to the second and third book because it didn't fully answer the question of what actually happened to Underhill. We kind of get a sense of what could have happened, but that question needs to be wrapped up. So I am interested to know, you know, the ending of that and how they're going to actually fix it and solve it. One other thing that I didn't really care for, I liked it, but I didn't like aspects of it. I liked her relationship with Lan, but I felt it wasn't believable at times. Like they went too much from hot and cold, hating each other, spying on each other, to boom, they're in love and kissing. It just wasn't believable, the relationship I found. So yeah, it's a good story, but not one that I would say, oh my goodness, you have to go pick this up and read it now. All right, number 5 was The Goners. I love this book. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I gave it a 4.5 stars. And it would have been 5 stars, except I knocked it off half a star because in the beginning, yes, it's an ensemble cast. There's a lot to keep track of. But I just felt like the way the headings were, it wasn't super intuitive. So I actually had to go back once or twice and be like, wait, who are we talking about? Okay, I got it. But once I understood the headings and just kind of got into the flow of it, wow, this was something. Like when I read this, I don't think it was just different from, let's say, Patience of a Dead Man, but my heart was racing when it got to those scenes where it actually details what the serial killer is doing to his victims and how he's chasing them down. Like I literally felt, it was such a visceral feeling. I felt like I was in a movie, but instead of watching it, I was actually running away from this serial killer. It was quite scary. I did manage to read it at night, and I didn't have any scary dreams, thank goodness. But you know, this is stuff that like actually happens. This is scary. So, yeah, it basically follows a group of paramedics who are finding dead bodies around this island where no one dies except by accident or by natural causes. But now all of a sudden there's dead bodies showing up. But when they actually get to they're not even dead. They're still alive. But when they actually get to the victims, they're the ones that are killing them through like either chest compressions or airflow. And the serial killer has actually set up the victims in that way, so he doesn't actually kill them. It's the paramedics who are on the scene who, when they're trying to help the victim, actually end up killing them. Wow, just what a ride. It is a short read, but Lewis Stevenson, well done on really gripping me with your writing, and I loved the cast. It was very believable. And then at the end, when we find out who's in charge, I kind of knew that wasn't, sorry, I knew that wasn't the only person, but I did not see coming the person who is really, really in charge. And now that this is the first book in a trilogy, and now I know who is in charge with the second book, that's going to really be interesting to see how that goes. Definitely pick this up if you're not too afraid to read about serial killers hunting you down. But overall, really well done. My next read was Smolder by Michael R. Goodwin. This I gave a 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. Again, it's about this man named Eric, and his wife has just left him for another man. But you find out that she is actually not having the time of her life in this new relationship because this other man that she's left her husband for is abusive, and now she's dealing with that. And it also kind of shows her journey of getting away from him, going back to her husband, who she believes will help take her in. But Eric goes out for a walk in the woods one night, and it's this thing, it's called the Nothing, or the Smolder, that begins to hunt him down in the middle of the night in these woods. And it's this black flame that burns its victims literally and like turns you into goo. And it kind of chases him down. It's almost like a cat and game mouse of, you know, like a cat and mouse game of who's gonna win. Is the mouse really gonna be able to flee this trap or not? And when at the end, when you just think that he's going to be able to leave, he's caught in this clearing. But this clearing is not next to his house. It's the home of the Smolder. And there his wife decides, so she ends up going to the new home where her husband is, follows his path into the woods, ends up in the clearing, and the guy who is now mad that his wife has gone back to her ex-husband to take care of her, he follows them into the clearing, and you just see this unraveling of characters before you and how the Smolder, you know, will he win over his victims or will they find a way out? That's the question. And it was an interesting story, and not only is this just like a story of this nothing chasing these people, but it's almost kind of allegorical in the sense of shows you how anger can lead, or fear can lead to anger, and anger can lead to bitterness, and bitterness to hate, and how hate is all consuming. And I almost felt like the Smolder was hate. I don't know if the author intended to do that, but I really enjoyed that hidden depth to the Smolder, the nothing that just goes after its victims and basically burns them from the inside out. So that was very interesting. I'm looking forward to reading more of Michael R. Goodwin's work. So wonderful job on that. The last book I read is, okay, there we go, is Defiant Surrender by Tamara Gill. And this, oh, I forgot to say, Smolder was supposed to be for, okay, so Goners was the ensemble cast category. Smolder was supposed to be middle-aged. Okay, so Eric wasn't quite middle-aged. He was like mid-30s, but we're just going to stretch it and let's say that he was middle-aged, okay? Like, I didn't know. It sounded like a middle-aged guy. We're going to just say he's middle-aged. That's kind of scary because I'm turning 30 next year, and that puts me closer to middle age than I didn't think was possible. But anyways, Tamara Gill, Defiant Surrender, and that follows the prompt for a book written by an Australian or New Zealand author. And this was actually kind of like an Outlander-esque time travel where Maddie, she is, this was really cool. I love the beginning, how you see her using a metal detector in the sand to find things. I don't think I've ever come across a book where a character was using a metal detector and liked finding things in the sand. So that was really unique. And she is part of, I don't know if she's a historian or she works with the museum to find lost pieces, but she finds this box. And in this box, super easy to open, she pops it open and there's this beautiful ring. And it looks brand new, except that it's not. It has like Old English. Old English, you can't even read it. It's a different language, okay? Instead of keeping it in the box like she should and give it to the museum, which she has full intention of doing. Okay, I'm going to just put my phone down because, okay, there, you can kind of see it. She decides to stick it on. And that brings her back in time to, instead of 2011, to 1102, where she's in the middle of this carriage and she's off to get married to a baron, and she's a baroness. She has holdings, he has holdings, their families want to put them together, and the king supports it, and the king will not allow an annulment. And what follows is kind of like that enemy to lovers trope, which I do enjoy, except the author, I get why she made him the way she did, although at first I wasn't too sure if I liked him because he was quite, like, he had his mistress the night of his wedding, and I mean, obviously, sure, they're just getting married for, you know, a political alliance, but still, that's really going the extra mile of being disrespectful. Like, at least go do it somewhere else. But it was like right on her floor where she was, and then she saw them in the hallway and they just took it to the room next door. So that was really, I don't know, maybe too much. He's supposed to be the guy she falls in love with after all, right? I don't know, that would be hard to go past. But they're always fighting and arguing, and she's obviously a 21st century woman, so she's very headstrong. She knows what she wants. And what ensues is a romance between the two of them, going from enemies to lovers. I enjoyed the story overall. The plot was engaging. The thing that wasn't believable was how fast they went from hating each other to being in bed with each other. And it's, you know, whatever, they're married, it's good. You're supposed to be together when you're married. That's part of marriage. But it just, like, I would have liked to have seen, because they even talk about, oh, let's learn to be friends, let's get to know each other. But they kind of like totally skip that part and just go from I hate you to I am sleeping with you, like all the time. So I felt like I missed out on the friendship aspect. That's just me personally. I would have liked to see maybe one or two scenes at least that really solidified their relationship in that way. And then the ending, the book, I mean, it did have a lot of like plot holes in terms of like time loop, and she inhabits her ancestor's body, Lady Madeline. But then I'm thinking, okay, so what is Lady Madeline doing? Like, is she in her body in the 21st century? But we don't have that perspective. I think it would have been neat to kind of show the duality of that relationship, and then him too. Well, okay, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to spoil it. Don't want to spoil it. Overall, it's a good read if you're like, oh, I love the enemies to lovers trope. I love a whole medieval romance. It's cool in that way. But I didn't like when they said, when they disclosed who was against them and who betrayed them. I was like, oh, seriously? That person did not make any sense. She just stuck the name in there to be like, oh, it's him. But it didn't make any sense. Like, there was no rhyme or reason to it. I'm just like, what? Like, it wasn't strong enough. And then the ending, when, I'm not going to spoil it, the ending was way too rushed. I would have liked to have seen more nuance in a coming together again. So there you have it. Those are my August reads. They are all indie authors, so I'm so glad I was able to support them, read their work, review them. That one I gave a 3-star read. So it was enjoyable, but there were issues with it. She does have some more time travel Regency era books, so like Jane Austen time period. I'm definitely interested to read that, and I've heard, just from the reviews I was looking at, they seem to be better, so I'm going to definitely check that out. Let's get on to August TBR. So, one thing that I am celebrating and I'm so excited about is I am part of an online group called Book Hatchery, and it's basically just a bunch of us authors on there, and I've been posting some of my videos that I do on YouTube just to help them out. And one of the authors, Connie Inglis, she actually asked me to read her first debut novel. It's called Rewritten Adam, and she wants me to review it for her. This is the first time I've been asked to review a book as a booktuber, so this is super exciting for me, and I'm so happy that I can give back to her in that community in that way. So from what I can tell, it's about a man who is like a self-discovery quest, and he goes to Southeast Asia. I think he's an archaeologist, and his travels of discovering who is he, why is he here, his redemption story. So I'm really interested to see how I like it and how that goes. My other reads are Big Lonely Doug. Now this is part of my local book club. We're reading this. And this is the story of one of Canada's last great trees. I know, you might think like, wow, that sounds really boring. And how Canadian can you get? You're reading about a literal tree. Yes, I am. Because that's what my book club shows, but also it actually sounds like I've heard that the way it's written is actually interesting and engaging. So I'm really curious to see how that's going to be pulled off. You'll find out at the end of the month what I think. Then I've got my first two buddy reads. I'm so excited. I've got Mr. Dickens and his Carol with Linda at Linda's World of Books. She mentioned on her channel, she asked if anybody wanted to buddy read. I love Charles Dickens. I'm actually listening right now to David Copperfield on Audible. I also started the Audible subscription free for a month because I thought I'd be able to sneak in a book. And I chose David Copperfield. It was the wrong book to listen to in 1 month. It's 36 hours long. But I'm listening to the lovely Richard Armitage reading it. I love him. He's one of my favorite actors. If you like the brooding, if you like the brooding dark character, then you have to see his miniseries North and South. I think it's done by BBC. Absolutely amazing. I'm going to be rewatching it with my friends sometime soon. Okay, now I'm going off topic. So Mr. Dickens and his Carol. From what I can tell, it's about Dickens and how he comes to write his Christmas Carol. So I'm really excited to read this with Linda. The other buddy read I don't have here now, but I'm going to buy it on Kindle. It's True Crime by Samantha Kolsnick. So I'm really interested to see what that's like. And last but not least, Stephen King, my first novel. Oh, man, look at that. It's a whopper. It's 1,000 pages long. Hopefully, I'll be able to finish this month. But as you can tell, the amount of books I'm reading this month is very small compared to 7 or 8 books that I've done this last 2 months. Or, well, actually, I've got 5. I'm missing True Crime and Rewriting Adam or Rewritten Adam. Well, still, it's much better than 8 or 7. I can't do a readathon now. I'm so burnt out. But that's my TBR for August. Those were my reviews for July. I hope that you've enjoyed hearing about them. What book did you read in July that was a 5-star review? And what was your least favorite book? Tell me in the comments below. If you like this video, go ahead and press the like button. If you want to see more booktube videos like this, and maybe if you're an author, you want some writing tips and advice, I go back and forth between the two, AuthorTube and BookTube. So go ahead and subscribe. And just again, thank you all for passing by and supporting me. Have a great week.